Greetings, I'm Zachary Hepner. I'm pleased to share this Dvar Torah with you for Parashat VaYetzei. With the slogan, segregation yesterday, segregation now, segregation forever, George C. Wallace won the 1962 Alabama gubernatorial race by a landslide. He is forever remembered in his attempt to stop the national mandate against segregation, standing in the doorway of the University of Alabama, blocking the entry of 2 black students, which, on public television, refusing to cede during his confrontation with Deputy U.S. Attorney General Katzenbach when asked to stand down, resulting with the nationalization of the university. Was Wallace a bigot or just an opportunist? Did it matter? Born in 1919, George Wallace showed many signs of progressive tendencies. During his tenure as a judge before his second and successful run for governor in 1962, he followed the progressive politics of Big Jim Folsom, representing the poor, struggling class. Ye all come was meant to be literal, that everyone should be properly represented. He even insisted on getting an appointment as a trustee to the Tuskegee Institute, the most prestigious black college in Alabama. J.L. Chestnut, a black lawyer, said that he was the most progressive judge he had encountered, and even provided Chestnut's clients punitive awards just because the white counterparties had treated Chestnut and his clients with typical Southern white contempt. Chestnut said it was the first time someone had addressed him as Mr. Chestnut, as was mandated by Judge Wallace. He helped create 50 bills for the poor, even obtained the support of the NAACP. With equality movements and the Rosa Parks bus event polarizing the state, he had made a deal with the devil. Switch sides to segregation yesterday, segregation now, segregation forever, and won by a landslide. His success increased. He ran for president on the third-party ticket in 1968 and showed even more promise in 1972, running against Richard Nixon for the Republican Party ticket, when a lone assassin rendered him paraplegic, ending his national aspirations. Yet, also described as a reasonable man, caring about all his citizens, and a visionary of infrastructure, yet in cindery language when he spoke to the crowds under the presumed values of states' sovereign rights. It's unclear if his seeking forgiveness from blacks in the 1980s was sincere or just another political move. Was Lavan a bigot? His mistreat of his son-in-law, the patriarch Jacob, would justify him as such. Jacob arrives in Padan Aram, or Mesopotamia, penniless, and from start, Lavan took advantage of Jacob. Without even touching Jacob physically, Lavan created contracts that put Jacob in a huge disadvantaged position, practically rendering Jacob as an indentured servant. When Jacob confronted Lavan the night after the wedding switcheroo between Rachel and Leah, Lavan replied, "It's nothing personal, but in these neck of the woods, we do things differently." But in the end of the Parsha, Jacob's accusing Lavan for changing the terms on him 10 times demonstrates the upper hand Lavan had against Jacob. Vatachlefet maskurti aseret monim. You changed my payment 10 times. Parenthetically, it also demonstrates how Jacob had dealt with Lavan honestly. Jacob absconded from Lavan like a nighttime bandit, only because he had to, by divine command, to Exodus, and Lavan would have prevented or have made it difficult for him to do so without compromising his wealth and family. The question whether someone is a bigot or racist is the wrong question. George Wallace saw voters as a tool for his personal advancement. Lavan saw Jacob as a tool to gain wealth. Rachel and Leah accused Lavan of mistreating them as outsiders when it says, Halo nochirot nechshavnu lo ki mecharanu vayochal gam achol et kaspenu. He treated us as strangers. What Wallace and Lavan had in common is Wallace riled up the white vote, and Lavan means white. My Avi Mori writes in his book, Legal Friction, that Lavan, white, echoes the hoary-headed person in Leviticus 19, who one must respect, something that Rachel did not do when she refused to stand up because it says, Mipnei seva takum, rise before the hoary head. But Lavan violated the next two verses. V'chi aguritchem ger b'artzachem lo tanu oto. If a stranger dwells among you, do not do him wrong. Treat him like a citizen. Love him as yourself, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am Hashem your God. Scholars claim that the manuscript of Sir Thomas More, which was most likely written by Anthony Munday, contains the only example of Shakespeare's handwriting in a literary manuscript. The play dwells on xenophobic riots that tore through London in 1517. More, who at this point of the play is the Sheriff of London, pleads with the crowd to accept and welcome the asylum seekers in their midst. Quote, imagine that you see the wretched strangers, More cries, their babies at their backs with their poor luggage, plodding to the ports and coasts for transportation, and that you sit as kings in your desires, authority quite silenced by your brawl. End quote. If the citizens of London were refugees, where would they go? Which country would want them? Why must you needs be strangers, he concludes, finding no abode on earth, with detested knives at your throats? Perhaps the moral fortitude of a nation has the same measuring stick as a person. Don't measure a person by how he treats his friends, but by how he treats his strangers. Similarly, how a government treats its citizens is less telling than how a government treats its foreigners. The challenge of how to treat the stranger has been a personal, community, and governmental problem since we stopped being hunter-gatherers. The solutions may be contradictory or hypocritical or unsustainable. One lesson we can learn from the life of Wallace or Jacob and Lavan, or from Sir Thomas More, is that the first step to staying human is to work on one's compassion. Ki gerim heitem be'eretz Mitzrayim ani Hashem Elokeichem. Wishing y'alls a Shabbat Shalom.